Foxglove by Mary V. Read by Mary V. Long, long ago, in the village of Filigree, there lived a fine, stylish, outstanding family known as the Bonnets. It was a lovely little village located somewhere in the south of France that sadly no longer exists today, but that fact will not deter the telling of this story. Their home was a grand mansion. It had to be, to properly house all their children and host the parties for the community. The dance hall in the east wing overlooked flower gardens. It had ample room for an orchestra and lines of dancers who dipped their toes forward and turned their heads left, twirled and bowed, all dressed in the very best. Pastel dresses of every color imaginable flowed and swayed, guided by tuxes with tails and properly tied ties. Both males and females wore dazzling white gloves, as with the expectation of the time. I mean, who would dress up for a ball and not wear gloves? It would be like forgetting one's shoes. It was even said that the butler would not allow entrance to anyone who bore only the flesh of their hand. Unlike hosts in other villages, Mrs. Bonnet did not stand off to the side with a drink in hand and watch her guests giggle and exchange conversations of gossip while she hobnobbed with an unexpected dignitary. Oh no, she enjoyed dancing as much as anyone, and extended her dazzling pure white gloved hand to poor, tired Mr. Bonnet, who longed to rest after the last 3 dances, onto the floor where they filled in the gap and waited with great anticipation for the downbeat. It was her giggles, or maybe her dance, or maybe her lilac-fashioned dress designed only this week, accenting her figure, that drew the smile on Mr. Bonnet and energized him to dance as animated as the younger men. How handsome and fun he was! The party spilled past the midnight hour when the room unexpectedly filled with gasps. Mrs. Bonnet had no idea what upset her guests until she followed their gaze to the open doors. In the threshold stood a creature dressed in a cinnamon gown. "Mr. and Mrs. Vixen." She stepped forward. Her dress matched long tresses that draped in waves to her waist. She wore gloves, but they were not white. They did not sparkle or sheen, but blended in with the color of her dress. Her date appeared next, dressed in typical black tucks with tails, but at the ends it appeared the designer dipped the fabric in brilliant white. How awful! How dreadful! Smelling salts appeared from clutches throughout the room. Usually Mrs. Bonnet had the perfect words to settle an unfortunate event, but she could not think of one, for she had never seen anyone so impertinent, so brash and discourteous to the host as to wear gloves of any other color than white. How boorish! The offense swelled within her. She made her way toward the late arrival, and as she walked, words of comfort calmed her. She could offer the guests white gloves. She'd send her maid to fetch them. Yes, this would solve the disharmony and return gaiety to the party. But as she neared the guests, the woman shined a sly eye, reached out her gloved hand, and touched Mrs. Bonnet. Instantly, her stunning white gloves turned lilac, the exact same shade as her dress. She splayed her gloved fingers and turned her hands over. The color was like a horrible disease infecting her. She ran to a looking-glass and saw her skin remained its natural color. Whew! And so she returned to the ballroom. Utter disaster had hit. The new guests had climbed through the room with such speed, touching every male and female, every glove changed color matching precisely the exact shade of the gown or tux worn by the bearer. The guests screamed and ran in terror, pushing toward the door, shoving out through the garden paths to their carriages and on down the road, leaving clouds of dust. Disenchanted Mrs. Bonnet looked about the room. The mystery guest had left. She plopped in a chair, not knowing what to do. Mr. Bonnet crossed the dense floor and held his velvety black glove out to her. "Mon belle, shall we stroll in the jardin? The scented blooms always cheer you so. Viens-tu avec moi, s'il te plaît, mon ami, viens." He took both her hands and helped her stand, then wrapped one arm around her, comforting her with his strong arm, and guided her into the candlelit garden, her prize. Mrs. Bonnet's garden was a beautiful display of white flowers, vast with pathways guiding all to see magnificent Queen Anne's lace, powder-white roses, ivory-white tulips, pearl-white camellia, linen-white hydrangea, porcelain white jasmine, and draping over trellises down to frosty white filigree benches, chiffon white wisterias. The garden had always been a balm when her life stirred in her soul. But tonight, this despicable night, she walked into the candlelight. There, before her, were new flowers springing to life. The blossoms reached out like trumpets proclaiming their presence. Colors of salmon, apricot, lilac, and pink, lemon yellow, coral, crimson, red. She pressed her hands on her chest. Her heart fluttered and pounded with such speed she hardly knew what to do. Mr. Bennet squeezed her tighter. Mon ami, this can be something good. Look at the colors, the rich, vibrant shades. They are welcoming, n'est pas? She closed her eyes, shutting out the sight, but the color bled through her eyelids. Mon ami, you have always been the one who has upheld society's norms. Others merely follow them. It has all as it has always been. Perhaps now you could be a trendsetter, one who others emulate, one who brings new life. He kissed her. She opened her eyes. Perhaps he was right, and wiped a tear. There, mon ami, you feel better, no? What shall you name this new flower? She squinted and allowed a sly smile. I shall call it Foxglove. Oh, c'est magnifique, mon ami, c'est magnifique. The world has never known how the flower whose blossoms bloom in many colors and trumpet from their stems a call to their presence got its name. To this day, many have Googled the answer, even combed through Wikipedia. That is until now, when the story of the fateful night at the Bonnet mansion was told, of how the foxglove changed what was to what is. This has been Mary V. reading Foxglove